and welcome to AMC Rewind. I'm Alicia Malone. This is the show where we celebrate classic movies. I'm back from my adventures at the Cannes Film Festival, but John Schnepp, my usual co-host, is in London. He is promoting his movie all over. So in his place, I have two fantastic guests. Firstly, from the Daily Beast, Jen Yamato.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And from JoBlo.com, Jimmy to the O.
Hello, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you guys on Rewind. This is a passion show for me. Not many people watch it, but they should. So watch it and share it with your friends. But today's theme is a bit of an interesting one. It is classic movies which look at showbiz, whether it's Hollywood or theatre. This is a theme we've seen in films for a long time, and even up to recently when we saw Birdman and how that looked at behind the scenes at stage. And I grew up, I'm imagining, much like you guys, fascinated with Hollywood, fascinated with movie making. So I used to love watching films like Singing in the Rain that had a look behind the scenes, particularly at movies set in the 50s, because that seemed so glamorous for me. So Jen, why do you think Hollywood likes to look at itself in movies?
Because they're all vain. It's a vanity thing. Also, it's always fun to get an insider's look at anything, which is why Singing in the Rain is one of the greatest movies of all time, not just one of the greatest showbiz movies.
Yes.
I agree.
And Jimmy O, you were talking about some of your favorites, The Player.
The Player, I mean, I grew up, weirdly enough, at Day for Night, all these kind of classic looks at Hollywood, and it just has always fascinated me. And as a kid, you're like, I want to be that backstabby and evil. Yeah, I want to do that. No, but I like movies that are on the darker side, and I like movies that celebrate Hollywood. Singing in the Rain is a perfect example. Just a fun movie.
Even Singing in the Rain has a dark side.
Yeah. A little bit.
And The Artist is quite similar to Singing in the Rain.
Love The Artist.
Love The Artist. I also love Ed Wood.
Oh, yeah.
Great film.
Probably my favorite Tim Burton film.
Yeah, my favorite too.
Yeah.
Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights.
I mean, that looks at a different side of showbiz.
And yet still very much the same, right? It's just like mainstream Hollywood, only except without... With sex on film.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Sex is captured on film.
I would even say Showgirls is a satire on Hollywood. It's just set in strip clubs in Vegas, but it has that same arc of the rise and the fall of the star.
That's actually very similar to one of the movies we're going to be talking about today.
Exactly.
With
Tropic
boobs.
Thunder is great. Get Shorty, adaptation, Bowfinger, Chubby
Big
Ray.
Picture. If you guys haven't seen the Big Picture with Kevin Bacon, Jennifer Jason Leigh, oh, what a great... Oh, you saw it, right? Such a cool little film that you haven't seen yet. You have to see.
I haven't seen, but I have seen Francis, and you were talking about that.
Yeah, I still, today, that movie blew me away. Jessica Lange's performance as Frances Farmer, which is, since then it's questionable how much is true from that film. The actress was brutalized by her mother in an insane asylum. She was supposedly given a lobotomy. There's a lot of questions about it, but either way, it's a fascinating life. And Frances Farmer was a great actress.
Yeah.
And it's almost impossible to think that she was at the top of her game, and then
The
suddenly,
Descent.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I love A Star is Born, the one with Judy Garland, because even though there are two other stars are born, one that came before and one that came after, that's the one that is the Star is Born, the definitive version for me, because Judy Garland is in it and because there's so much meta storytelling going on with her life. And it's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And I agree, that's when these kind of films work best, when you have a star in them who you feel like it is a meta tale on their life. Like even Birdman, Michael Keaton.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
All it was talking about with superheroes and Hollywood versus art. I love it. And I can't wait for the Coen Brothers' Hail Caesar, which is coming out next year. Can't wait.
Oh, yeah.
But let's get into our two main movies. So if you'd like to try this theme, Rewind recommends All About Eve from 1950. It's a look at showbiz and Broadway, written and directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz, starring Bette Davis as an aging stage actress and Anne Baxter as Eve, very ambitious young fan, nominated for 14 Oscars, and it remained the only film to do that until Titanic. Won 4 Oscars, and it's number 16 on the American Film Institute list of the 100 greatest American movies of all time. Jimmy, we've been talking about this one. This is one of your favorite movies. Why do you love it so much?
What can you not love? I mean, the humor holds up well. The wit holds up well. Bette Davis is just amazing. It's one of those movies that I think it's really timeless. You see this kind of story going on all the time. The young ingenue, I want to be you. Which we've talked about. And the performances are just brilliant. I took my son to see this, and he loved it. And Marilyn Monroe has like a 2-minute sequence, and she's absolutely stunning.
She is.
There's everything. It's a perfect film, a perfect look at Hollywood, especially in the 50s when women really ruled. Where they ruled the box office. I think people forget that at that time.
Well, until they turned 40, right? Which is what happens
when they're turfed
in the film.
Absolutely.
And what still happens today with Maggie Gyllenhaal complaining that at 37 she's been deemed too old to play love interest to like a 55-year-old actor.
Which is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a really dark look at aging and showbiz. I like the way it looks at Hollywood versus Broadway and the kind of, but you're just a Hollywood actress, the kind of snobbery of the theatre. These classic showbiz types, but this was one of the first films to really do it. Great script, great acting. And for me, I don't know if you guys agree, but I would say this is the best role that Bette Davis had. Would you agree?
I would. It's definitely. Although I whatever happened to Baby Jane,
she's
kind
good
of,
too.
she's kind of amazing. But yeah, I think it's a phenomenal performance and just an amazing film. If you haven't seen it, if you're a fan of Hollywood, you have to see this film. You have to.
Yeah.
Also, I love how it basically opens with narration from the critic. Right? The critic character is the one who sees all, but he also is very involved in some of the shady shenanigans going on. And as a journalist, that's always kind of funny. We're the ones being the voyeurs on the outskirts of these scenes. And every single time I watch an award show, like the Oscars or the Golden Globes or like the VMAs or something, I always think about the scene that bookends this movie when everybody's throwing shade at each other and at Eve Harrington, and I'm like, I watched like Beyonce or like J-Lo in the audience, and I'm like, who's she giving side eye to? Because this is like age old, and it's hilarious to me still.
I love that line of don't you worry about your heart, you can put your award where your heart's supposed to be. It's such a great line. Also the fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night.
All of these movies are great lessons in how realistically Hollywood types have to deal with ambition and tragedy and disappointment and failure and success.
Greed. Yeah, and you always have to watch your back. I was saying this has happened to me a couple of times before where I think that someone's really nice and then they end up disappointing me.
You in real life?
Yeah, in real life. Yeah. And I always try to be really giving and I'll help you. What do you need? I'll support you. And then you hear something, you're like, oh no, that's disappointing. Then you like to support women.
You're an Eve.
You're like, you are an Eve. And obviously no spoilers for people who haven't seen the film, but I like the way the film ends. It's the perfect ending to the movie.
This is not an isolated case
of
blind, ruthless ambition.
Well, it's based on a short story called The Wisdom of Eve, which came from an anecdote from an actress, so it definitely has those roots in realism. And, Bette Davis, they were considering Claudette Colbert, Gertrude Lawrence, and Marlene Dietrich, but you cannot imagine anyone else but Betty playing this. It came when she was 42, her acting roles were starting to dry up because she resigned from the Academy when they refused to donate profits to the British War Relief. And she was told after that she'd never work again. And then, boom, she's got this great role. And just an interesting fact, it's sometimes called the 3 suicide movie because you've got George Sanders, Barbara Bates, and Marilyn Monroe. Sad.
Yeah.
But All About Eve, definitely recommend watching it. And another film on Showbiz that Rewind recommends. It came out in the same year as All About Eve from 1950, Sunset Boulevard. This is directed by Billy Wilder, starring William Holder as a struggling screenwriter and Gloria Swanson as the faded star Nora Desmond, who has fantasies of a comeback. She convinces him to write for her in exchange for money. These two have a very complicated relationship, to say the least. This is nominated for 11 Oscars, including all 4 acting categories. It won 3, and it's number 12 on the AFI list of 100 greatest American movies. So people who I know are trying to make their way through the AFI list, these 2 are really good to start off with. This is another look at the price of fame and ambition. Jen, it's quite sad as well when you see a star who's been passed over, left in their lonely mansion. What happens next?
I think about, like, just with All About Eve, I think about all of the discarded talents that are just rotting away in the Hollywood hills when I think about this movie. It's so sad. I mean, they're out there. Look at her. This is her triumphant moment, and it's the most tragic moment of the entire movie.
Yeah. Exactly.
So brilliant.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Yeah.
Great lines in this one, too. And Gloria Swanson, she steals the show.
Yes.
And also this story unites 2 of the most tragic kinds of archetypes in Hollywood stories. The aging starlet and the struggling screenwriter.
It does. It's true. And then the way they work together, he almost becomes a gigolo.
Yeah.
He totally is a gigolo.
Oh, he totally is.
Yeah.
He likes the lifestyle, doesn't want to give that up.
He's a kept man.
She's very crazy and controlling. Jimmy, do you think her performance is perfect? Because some people say she overacts in this role, but it's meant to be that way.
Look, when she is an aging starlet. She was a silent film star. It was all about the look. It wasn't about the dialogue, which is a big point of this. It's like, but they didn't need words when I was acting. So it's absolutely fitting. I don't think it's over. Yes, of course it's melodramatic because that's what she knows, and she's kind of nuts. So I think it's absolutely perfect. It's an iconic portrait. I mean, look at her.
You see the fear in her eyes too, and just the madness.
Yeah, and she's being, you were saying a lot of this. This is timely as well because you see people who become these big stars, and then they're kind of, you have all these people kind of saying, supporting them, yes, okay, yes, and not telling them the truth, and just basically destroying the talent, destroying them personally, professionally, because no one will say no. No one will. They keep feeding the fueling the fire. It's really heartbreaking. Also,
with her story, with Norma Desmond's character, she comes from a time that is now obsolete.
Yeah, exactly.
And just like with Singing in the Rain, it's about what's lost in the transition from silence to talkies. And she is a talent who was great at this kind of now obsolete, forgotten form of cinema. And now that's all she has.
Yeah, you see that in the scene when she does a Charlie Chaplin impression.
So adorable.
It's adorable. And that's when you go, I kind of like her. And then she's nuts. It's pretty incredible, I think, for a film at this time to be so self-reflective and so cynical. What do you think was happening in 1950 for both of these films to come out?
Well, you say it right there. You say they're like, but you're 50. You're washed up. You're like, really? 50? She's washed up, which... Still going on. And that's ridiculous to me. That is unbelievable.
I think back then, too, stars were very public with their celebritydom, like going out to clubs and socializing and being seen. And at this time in her life, in this character's story, that's a thing of the past for her. And she no longer has that environment, that society to lean on. And she literally has almost nothing left except for the money she's made and her oil riches and whatever investment she's made on. But she's so alone because the world has forgotten her.
Yeah, that's sad. And she still wants that fame. She still craves that. And because this film was so dark, the script was printed under the name A Can of Beans. And when Louis B. Mayer from MGM saw it, he stormed out and he said to Billy Wilder, "You have disgraced the industry that made and fed you. You should be tarred and feathered and run out of Hollywood." And it's interesting to know that well before American Beauty did the same thing, this movie starts at the end with the hero being dead. And so you know how it's going to end, but the brilliance is how does it get there?
Yeah.
And that leaves you wondering.
Yeah.
That's a great script.
Great script.
I love all the quotes. I'm big. It's the pictures that got small. And there's some great cameos too, like Buster Keaton, Cecil B. DeMille.
I think that's one of the best scenes in the film when she goes back to Paramount, the studio. Try not to do too spoilery, but when she meets up with him, and it's so heartbreaking. And you do see that nowadays. You definitely see the, oh yeah, no, you're still great. Yeah, we still love you. Really?
Do you see that though? Like, wait.
Yeah. You see that in the you see her go to the studio and you see him.
Oh no, I mean now.
I think so. I think you do. I think a lot of times, especially because I'm a huge fan of like horror movies, and I think you kind of see.
Oh yeah.
You know, they go to conventions, and it's kind of sad sometimes.
Oh, autograph alleys at conventions.
Yeah.
That is kind of sad.
I love those. I think they're great because I'm a fan of that. But I kind of feel because you hear people talk about that, and you're like, you know what? They earned a little respect. Come on.
It depends on the person, I think. You know.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It really does.
If someone is still craving that level of fame or is still thinking they're going to make a comeback, sometimes that can be sad.
Yeah. It can be really heartbreaking.
Both these films still hold up today, which shows the power of a good script.
And they're also both about actresses.
Yeah.
Who have been aged and forced out of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me that we've gone now like 6 decades since these movies, and not that much has changed.
65 years, and it's still the same.
Yeah.
God damn it. All right, well, now for our segment, which always weirds me out because time moves too fast. This is Rewind Remembers, where we celebrate the movies turning 20 and 30 years old.
No.
So can you believe that 20 years ago this week, Braveheart came out, directed by Mel Gibson, about the Scottish hero William Wallace, nominated for 10 Oscars, won 5. Also Johnny Mnemonic, I can never say that, starring Keanu Reeves as a data courier who has information stashed in his mind. And then I threw this last one in for me because I love, high five, I love Mad Love. This is the tragic love story with Drew Barrymore and Chris O'Donnell. It didn't do well at all at the box office.
Not at
but
all.
I was obsessed with this movie.
Were
I
you?
still know all the words. I cut my hair like Drew.
Did you?
Yeah. I loved it
Let's
so
only talk
much.
about Mad Love for the rest of this episode because
It's
I'm ready.
Brilliant.
Oh my
I don't know
goodness.
why. I think I
I don't
just
know what
related
studio
it.
I just walked into.
So Do you know, recently I spoke to Chris O'Donnell and he says he never watches his movies. He's just now getting around to seeing Scent of a Woman.
Oh,
And he
wow.
said he's never watched Mad Love, and it broke my heart a little.
Wow.
Does he not know how great he was in the 90s?
He was so great.
This Mad Love came at a time of peak Chris O'Donnell
and peak Drew Barrymore.
and
Yeah.
peak Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
Chris
why-
O'Donnell hotness was like, here, I wrote Fried Green Tomatoes,
Yes.
School Ties,
Yes.
Scent of a Woman,
Yes.
Three Musketeers, Circle of Friends, and then Batman Forever. But Mad Love was amazing. It made me want to go to Seattle, and I wore out my soundtrack listening to 7 Year Bitch.
Me too. I loved it so much. I'm so glad I'm not the only one.
Oh no, you were not the only one. Every girl who was like a teenager in the 90s, in the mid 90s, was obsessed with Mad Love.
I don't know why it didn't do better than it did. I remember in Australia it had a 2-week run.
I wonder if
Really?
it had come out now. Like, because
Whether it would be-
teen audiences are more accepting, like with Twilight and all that stuff. I just wonder if it would have done better.
I actually think both Mad Love and Johnny Mnemonic would do really well if they came out now because, but in a way that's also impossible just because now we have such 90s nostalgia
Yeah.
that these movies now hold up in a way that they probably didn't really hold up.
Yeah, you
10
look at
years ago
everything
even.
she's wearing and all the fashion is
Yeah.
back again.
That's true.
Now, you're a super fan of Braveheart, Jimmy.
I would, it's like I saw it when I was younger, and I didn't really love it. I knew it was. I think it was one of those movies. Everyone said it's amazing, but I was just like, no.
No, you didn't.
And it's weird. It's one I want to rewatch because everybody loves this movie, and it was something something just didn't sit right with me when I first saw it.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird. But back then, it was before I became a critic, so I pretty much only liked horror films. If someone was getting killed, I was,
People
So
get killed
I know
all
I
over
should have loved it.
Braveheart.
I should have, but it's one I probably, because I've kind of grown to. I'm kind of going back on Mel Gibson's career. Watching his
Mad
older
Max.
movies, thanks to another movie that came out that's amazing.
Fury
So
Road.
yeah. Can we just talk about that?
Yeah. Jen, do you think Mel Gibson is due for a comeback as a director?
I think he's certainly proved in the past that he can be an excellent director. I think what's interesting about Gibson is that in the past few years of crazy Mel Gibson-ness, it's been movies like Braveheart that reminds you that he wasn't always just a totally bonkers, crazy person. And that kind of gives you some hope, you know? Like, now I'm like, maybe not everybody has to be ruined by extreme success and whatever demons they fight. Maybe they can always go back into that happy place where they made Braveheart.
Yeah. And he's a man, so he's aged well. According to Hollywood. So
that means he can still have a career.
Yeah, exactly. So 30 years this week, Fletch came out, the classic comedy starring Chevy Chase as a newspaper reporter, and this character is still enduring. There's talks about Jason Sudeikis playing him in a movie called Fletch 1.
I would support that.
Do you guys enjoy Fletch or Fletch Lives more?
Probably Fletch.
I think Fletch.
Yeah,
the original.
I was a huge. I still kind of love the original SNL gang with Chevy Chase, Gilda Radner, and all those guys. So I was a huge. I kind of was raised in reruns of this. So yeah, I love Chevy Chase. I love his earlier work, like the stuff he did with Goldie Hawn, Foul Play. But yeah, this one was awesome. It's one that still holds up. I think.
Yeah.
Kind of dated, but it's still a lot of fun.
Chevy's brilliant in this.
Yeah,
as a journalist, I try to take Fletch as my role model in my life and career.
Yeah, good. How's that working? Pretty well.
You know, it's a life goal. I'm working on it.
I can't believe it's been 30 years, though. That makes me feel really old.
Crazy.
All right, well, getting back to our theme, our hidden gem this week, Classics on Hollywood or Showbiz, is Barton Fink. From 1991, directed by the Coen brothers. I think this is one of their best, but one of their most underrated movies. Not many people talk about this one, but set in 1941, it's about a theatre playwright called Barton Fink, played by John Turturro, who accepts a job writing scripts in Hollywood. The Coens say they wrote this script in 3 weeks as a break from writing Miller's Crossing, and then it premiered in Cannes, and it's the only film to have won the Palme d'Or, the Best Director Award, and the Best Actor Award, and then after this, Cannes instated a rule that no film can win more than 2 awards because of Barton Fink. It was also nominated for 3 Oscars. So, Jimmy, this is interesting because this is very meta, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
They wrote it when they had writer's block, and it's about a writer with writer's block.
Absolutely, and it's still I think it's one of their best films. I think Turturro's amazing. I love every single time they gather a cast. Like John Goodman is so good with the Coen brothers. I think I love him in this. He's wild and crazy, and just that whole. Once you get to that final act, it's so insane. I mean, it's very meta, and you can. I think anyone in this business can kind of relate to what's going on with Turturro and Barton Fink, and trying to be a screenwriter who I think are probably treated worse than actors in this town by far.
They're very low on the totem pole.
Yeah, so it's kind of fascinating to watch it from this perspective, but it's so wild and crazy. It's just so much fun.
So much fun.
And it didn't make a lot of money. It did not connect with audiences
at all. Did not make enough money.
No, it didn't.
No,
That's
and
okay.
Jen, being a writer, do you relate to this movie?
This is the best movie about writer's block that has ever been made. Also about the creative process. I love that Barton Fink is not a perfect character. He's so deeply flawed. He's kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
And when he goes to this hotel, which may or may not be a metaphor, it probably is. I think we can agree. That is the most visceral visual depiction of creative block that I think we've ever seen, probably.
The sound design is so great because you just keep hearing noises through the walls, very distorted.
You can feel the sweat dripping off of these characters and the wallpaper peeling off of the walls.
Claustrophobic. Yeah. And do you think, Jimmy, with a film like this, it matters whether you understand it all? Is it more about the psychological state? It's a surreal movie.
I think that when we want to have everything explained to us as an audience, I don't think that's a good thing. I think sometimes with a movie, you have to question it, and it's when maybe you have to watch a couple of times. Maybe you have to watch it repeatedly, and you still never get it completely. I like that. I like being challenged by a film, and this movie is definitely challenging, but it's also crazy entertaining. So yeah, I don't need it all spelled out personally.
And the Coens say the movie is more intentionally ambiguous in ways that critics may not be used to seeing. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of people want to know the answers to some of the questions in the film, like what's in the box?
Yeah.
But the answer isn't good, so maybe it's best that we don't know.
Yeah. The imagination is a pretty powerful tool, and when audiences are left to it sometimes, I think the better the movie is, oftentimes.
Also, I think not revealing what's in the box leaves it open to multiple interpretations, which makes this film so much more interesting.
I agree.
And it's a film without an ending, but it's kind of the perfect ending.
Yeah.
Without giving anything away.
Yeah.
So good.
No spoilers.
So good. I love the way it takes a turn halfway through. It becomes a mystery movie. It starts out pretty simple and then it twists. And the visual images, without giving too much away, is there a shot that stands out for you, Jen, from this movie?
I still think about the wallpaper, the walls, and the feeling the heat of being in the hotel.
Yeah.
Like, you can feel that, and that puts you in Barton Fink's mentality. It puts you in the seat of being a screenwriter who is very well aware that he's selling out, which is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He's been told what to write. He doesn't know anything about a wrestling movie, but he's told that he has to write it. I love the scenes with the crazy producer. Mm-hmm. It's very over the top, but it works.
Yeah, it works incredibly well.
And it also brings up that dichotomy between working in the stage, writing for the theater, for high art, and moving to Hollywood and selling out to make mass-produced entertainment.
Yeah.
Well, and now it's also, you could say the same thing about making independent film as opposed to making the big budget, because now there's a lot of, it really crosses a lot of lines that are really fascinating. I think any screenwriter needs to see this film, for sure. For sure. Anyone should see it.
I'm sure every screenwriter has seen this film while they were struggling to write a scene.
Exactly.
Just put it on in the background and go, at least it's not that bad.
Imagine having the talent to write this while you're trying to write another movie.
Right.
And Miller's Crossing is great as well.
Yeah.
Coen brothers. They are so talented. So there you go. If you like to watch some classic satires, some dark looks at Hollywood or showbiz, Rewind recommends All About Eve, Sunset Boulevard, and Barton Fink. So let us know what you think in the comments below. If we've missed any, what are your favorites of that theme, or what have you watched that we've suggested? I always like to hear from you guys. And I'd like to thank my wonderful panel. Jen Yamato, where can people find you if they want to read more?
They can find me at The Daily Beast and also on Twitter at Jen Yamato.
Thanks so much for coming in. And Jimmy to the O, do you remember all your
I
social media?
I do. Jimmy to the O at I'm on, that thing, Twitter, Facebook, James Oster, Instagram, Jimmy to the O. I'm out there all over. So.
And Joe Black.
Yeah, and Joe Blow and Arrow in the Head, too.
Oh, cool.
Where I do a column about where in the horror are they now. So I have a deep love for actors that we don't see a lot lately. So
fantastic.
Yes.
We'll have you guys both back on. Kung Fu movies I want to talk about with you.
Done.
I want to talk about horror with you.
We need to do that.
We need to do that.
Yes.
And you guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff at Alicia Malone. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching Rewind.